Hello, hello. My name is Victoria Kolesnik. I want to welcome you to today's webinar. So, I'm MM Publications, CLT consultant for linguist company in Ukraine. I can see more people are coming in, so we'll wait for a couple of minutes to let everybody join our webinar. Okay. So where are you from? Please write in our chat box. Do you see my presentation? The chat doesn't work. Just a second. What about now? To write in the chat, please. Oh, I see. Yes. So, okay. Hello from Kyiv, Rivne. Oh, I see that you see my presentation. That's great. Ivano-Frankivsk, Rivne, Dnipro, Kyiv, Lviv, Vinnytsia, Zaporizhia. Hello, hello. Zhytomyr, Odessa. Yeah, great. Donetsk region. Kremenchuk, Sumy, my hometown, Sumy. Okay, Nizhyn, Odessa. Hello, Kherson. Hello from Vinnytsia. Nice to see all of you here. Kyiv, Lviv. Ismail. Okay. So, thank you very much for taking time out of your day for joining this webinar. I guess we are ready to start. So today we are talking about how to teach vocabulary for secondary age. When it comes to learning a foreign language, such as English, many students spend hours working with textbooks and doing grammar exercises. However, many students don't realize that working on vocabulary is just as important, if not more important, when it comes to success in learning a foreign language. So at this webinar, we'll take a closer look at the topic of vocabulary and explore some of the reasons why it is so important and how it can help preteens and teenagers achieve their language learning goals and achieve fluency faster. So we are going to talk about the importance of teaching vocabulary. In a nutshell, vocabulary is very important because it is the basis of the language. We can use it to express our thoughts and ideas, share information, or understand others, and grow personal relationships. Even if we barely know a language and have zero grasp of grammar, we can still communicate. For example, when you point at a chocolate cake in a French bakery and saying a few words with a smile on your face, it's just as likely to result in a tasty breakfast as uttering a grammatically perfect sentence. So it would be nice to have both, of course, but it is not essential. As British linguist said, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. And here, I think about how children acquire language. Before they ever attempt complex structures, they will utter single words and are usually able to tell what they want. And when we talk about students, their ability to communicate becomes much more effective when their language abilities develop. And the point here is that they are still able to communicate using vocabulary alone. When thinking about how to teach vocabulary, it is important to remember that learners need to have both active and passive vocabulary. So here we understand that vocabulary should consist of English words the learners will use in sentences, and those they will barely have to recognize when they hear them or see them written down. Passive vocabulary refers to words that learners understand but are not yet able to use. And active vocabulary is the words that learners understand and use in speaking and writing. And we can say that teaching active and passive vocabulary, both are very important for students, comprehension, creativity, or personal expression. And despite our best efforts, students don't remember as many words as we'd like them to. Lots of new words are understood when introduced, but then disappear in a glimpse of an eye. And we'll pay attention to some strategies we can use to help increase our students' vocabulary range. And at the end of the webinar, we'll got this Q&A session. So if you have any questions concerning textbooks, please write in the chat and I will be happy to answer. Okay. So, and before we start, I would like to remind you about the certificates. You will receive your certificate within 3 working days, as you see. I ask you to check your email as well as your junk box. But if you don't see your certificate, if you don't find it, just feel free to contact me and I will send you. Okay, so let's have a look on why vocabulary is important. So when students have a wider vocabulary in target language, it helps support all 4 language skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Vocabulary knowledge is perhaps the most important factor when it comes to reading comprehension. For example, if you sit down to read a book and you don't know the vocabulary used, you will struggle to understand the meaning of the text. You might end up looking up the words in a dictionary or guessing the meaning of the words from the context, or you might simply give up and find something else to read. And if you have never seen or heard a particular piece of vocabulary in a foreign language you study, it will be much harder to recognize and decode the sounds and therefore understand the meaning. And sometimes you have probably experienced a time when a particular word is on the tip of your tongue, but you are unable to remember it. It works in a similar way for a second language learner who hasn't learned that particular vocabulary word in the first place. If they don't know that piece of vocabulary, they will be unable to completely express their message. For this reason, knowledge of vocabulary is widely considered to be perhaps the most crucial element when it comes to a person's ability to speak a foreign language. And it's much easier to express ourselves in writing if we have a larger vocabulary. If the student has a larger selection, a larger choice of words to choose from, he will be able to be more precise when expressing a thought, feeling, event, or idea. So the more words he knows, the better he can express himself. Children who develop a rich vocabulary tend to be deeper thinkers, express themselves better, and read more. Improving language and literacy skills early in life will help them be more successful academically and communicatively. And by reading fluently, we mean reading the words correctly while making meaning of them. You may be able to read all of the words in medical journal, but if you don't know what they mean, you are not reading like a fluent reader. When you teach new words each day, you help students develop their vocabulary, which in turn helps their fluency. And it is great if students know the meanings of most of the words they read, but there are times that they need to use a strategy to figure out what word means. Maybe they need to use the context of what's happening in the text. Maybe they need to use word parts like prefixes, or maybe they need to understand multiple meanings and figure out which one makes the most sense in certain context. And teaching vocabulary daily allows you to teach these strategies so that students can be successful independently, whether reading at school or at home. And it makes life more enjoyable, whether it's browsing the net or reading for pleasure, listening to music, watching TV, or traveling. Nothing will ever seem unfamiliar to students. And here the good question is, what is it to know a word? Just type your ideas in the chat. How do you think? what do we need to know about the word? Okay, oh, I see. Meaning. Spelling, pronunciation. Okay, yes, I see. Spelling, synonyms, word building, collocations. Absolutely. Yes, you're right. So let's have a look. There is more to teaching a word than simply translating it or even using it in a sentence as an example. So we should pay attention to the meaning, form, pronunciation, spelling. When we are talking about meaning, so knowing a word means knowing not only the meaning, but knowing the contexts in which that word is used. The words which are related to it and where to use the word. It also requires knowing hidden implications that could be connected with the word. And the first problem is that there is probably more than one meaning for each word. And it is a good idea to stick up teaching one meaning of a particular word at a time. If students already know one meaning and you could compare it, but don't teach two very different meanings at the same time. There are many words that are near synonyms or that are synonyms in particular contexts. But here we need to remember that no word means exactly the same as another word in all the same context. Otherwise, there wouldn't be two words. For example, let's say big and large. In most contexts, this means the same thing, but if you bought the t-shirt, you probably wouldn't say it was extra big. If you're talking to a 6-year-old boy who starts school this year, probably you wouldn't tell him that he is a large boy now. So it is important that learners know what context they can use a particular word into. What concerns form? So here the problem to look out for is irregular plurals such as mouse and mice, but not house and highs. And some of these are really common, like woman, women, child, children, person, people. Problems don't only arise with nouns. Many common verbs are irregular. So if you are teaching the verb swim, for example, your learners will need to know that yesterday they swam, and in the past they have swum in a river. Finally, if learners are going to use a word, they need to know how it fits with the other words. So they need to know about collocations. We can't say Merry Birthday, right? We can say Merry Christmas, but we never say Merry and birthday together. So these words don't collocate. We also need to consider the pronunciation and the spelling, learners need to be able to pronounce items they learn. That means pronouncing the individual syllables acceptably, and also knowing where to put the stress. So we need to mark the stress on the word when we present it. It is believed that English spelling is a nightmare of exceptions, and it is true. It can be a tricky area for everyone, even for native speakers. And you will agree with me that sometimes the native speakers, they have difficulties in spelling the words correctly. However, there are rules, and many English words can be successfully spelled simply by listening to how they are said and writing them down. Before teaching the vocabulary, here are some key things we have to understand. There are three main tiers that can be used to categorize vocabulary, and I have talked about these tiers before. So we are going to move from the first tier up to the top, the third tier. The first tier includes common everyday words that are used in conversations. This tier vocabulary words consist of basic familiar words, and these words are commonly used by most students during the lesson. Such words as jump, school, cheer, happy, sad. So the first tier words are usually learned through conversation, and typically they don't need they don't require specific vocabulary instruction. The second tier includes words that are used frequently in academic settings. Words are used and found in books and written text. So the words like beneficial, authority, establish, whatever. The second tier vocabulary words often have multiple meanings, and these words usually require explicit vocabulary instruction. Students will encounter the second tier words across multiple content areas. So it is important that they understand their meaning. So the students will frequently encounter these words in written texts. And the third tier words are content-specific words that are used outside of a certain topic. They are low-frequency words, and they have specific meaning and purpose. When we use the third tier word, there is a specific reason to do so. The third tier words should be taught within the context of a specific subject or lesson. And here the thing is that we should focus on the second tier words. They are high frequency words that students encounter across their content. These are words that are found and used across a variety of topics, areas, and contents. Since many second tier words have multiple meaning, they are more difficult to learn because students need to understand the words with the multiple contexts. So let's have a look at how we can teach the words, the vocabulary, and you can teach it according to Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy attempts to classify learning stages from remembering facts to creating new ideas based on their acquired knowledge. And the idea of Bloom's taxonomy is that learning is a consecutive process. Before applying a concept in real life, we must understand it. Before we understand a concept, we must remember the key factors related to it. So the learning stages are remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Let's take a look at the different ways you can apply Bloom's taxonomy in language learning. Let's say you are going to teach different types of transportation using a text or a video. Here are some activities that you can incorporate in line with each thinking skill in Bloom's taxonomy. So you start with remembering. First of all, you introduce words related to transportation using pictures. This way, students can easily recall their vocabulary and will be able to recognize them in the video or the text. Then, understanding. So students watch the video, and then you can check their understanding of the video by asking comprehension questions. The next one is applying. Afterwards, students use the vocabulary and concepts they have learned to talk about the transportation options in their city or those in other countries. Then the class examines and discusses the pros and cons of different types of transportation. So they analyze. The next one is evaluating. Students can then hold a discussion on how they get to school, what means of transportation they use. And the last one is creating. Based on the previous task, students can write some ideas on other means of transportation they would like to have in the city where they live. And the first step in helping students remember vocabulary is teaching it in context. This means you should never provide a list of isolated words for them to learn. Words should be introduced within the context of a story or everyday situation or activity or any other context your students are familiar with. And the best way to help students to remember and retain the new words they are introduced to is to connect it with an object in the real world. Pictures and flashcards, they are good, but real world items are even better. You can try this. So we often teach words related to weather with pictures of clouds, rain, sun, and that's perfectly fine. But you can print out the 10-day forecast, or you can visit the website and talk about the weather. So what the weather will be like today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, for students to see their connection. So the words they have learned in their textbooks can be easily used in real life. Then flashcards. When we speak, words are gone with the wind. They disappear in a matter of seconds. Students may understand them, but their minds are quickly filled with other thoughts. And you can use devices for vocabulary teaching, such as flashcards or word cards. You can write the English language word on one side of the card and a sentence containing the word, its definition, its synonyms, and pronunciation on the other side. Word cards can be an excellent memory aid. And the use of pictures helps visual learners to remember the word, meaning, and sometimes context, all of which can help students to better understand when reading. And being able to describe pictures and infer meaning from them, students are not only able to increase their vocabulary, but they also build comprehension and literacy skills. Once the new vocabulary has been taught, a useful way to test if students have understood the meanings of this new vocabulary is to ask them to match new words from one column with definitions from another column. The new words are numbered in column 1, and the definitions are mixed up and lettered in the second column. So students can also make up sentences using this technique, matching the beginning of the sentence or phrase from the first column with the end of the sentence or phrase from the second column. And when practicing new words, make sure students not only remember the word itself, but its proper collocation or usual verb-noun combination. When teaching, let's say, holiday activities, don't just teach words like cruise or abroad. Teach phrases like go on a cruise or travel abroad, or when you are teaching hobbies, for example, teach them that they make a model plan, not do. Then explain to your students that memorizing long lists of words is not the most effective method to learn new words. Encourage them to think the words through and to try to understand them in context. Motivate them to take the time to look up any new words in a dictionary to ensure they have crossed the right meaning. There are plenty of online dictionaries, so show them how to work with the dictionary. Graphic organizers. This is a simple graphic organizer. It can be an effective method to help students master their knowledge of new words. So the students can write the part of speech the word refers to, its definition, or maybe some interesting facts. They can make up their own sentence with this word. After a word has been introduced, we want students to see it at least 10 more times so it sticks. Activities like fill in the blank will help students make strong connections between the between the words. Also, have them use the new words. Students are ready to find the ways they can use these words to make meaning, and activities like using the word in a sentence or mind maps or filling the blanks with no options. They develop students' use of words as tools for meaning and communication. And in order to build vocabulary, it's a good idea not only use the words from your chosen vocabulary list, but also incorporate their synonyms and antonyms. Using opposites to teach new vocabulary gives students the opportunity to learn twice as many words. To make a bigger impact on your students' learning process, you can use pictures to illustrate sentences, or put words into short sentences that tell a story. Another way to incorporate antonyms into a lesson is by asking simple questions in which students get to choose the answer that suits their needs. For example, you may ask, what do you save your money for? And what do you spend your money on? When do you feel happy? And when do you feel sad? And games, they are essential tool in the language classroom. They allow students to think outside the box and put what they have learned to immediate use, or even create experiences with their classmates. And there are many simple games and activities that can be used to teach vocabulary. Some of them can be dynamic, some are board games. So you can ask your students to use movements to show their vocabulary. The students, especially 5th or 6th graders, they like to move. This is their natural need. And giving them the opportunity to show, to demonstrate the vocabulary through movements, you give your students the chance not only to move, but practice the new words. And sometimes your classroom may be allowed place, but it's a whole different story. Again, when organizing such activities, noise is expected. A classroom where students talking and interacting in English, even if it is noisy, it is okay. Then, word wheel. You can create a spinning wheel with pieces of paper to pull from from which prompt the students to name a part of speech or draw a word, define it, maybe rhyme it, or provide a synonym, use it in a sentence, or simply act it out. Then tally marks. So students are given vocabulary words to listen out for during a class period, or reading or video. Anytime they hear the word, they make a tally mark on their paper, or they can ask their classmates and do the research, the investigation on some of the topics. Then categories. This is my favorite. You can play this game whether offline, just to fill up the last few minutes of class, or online. Just visit categoriesgame.net. Have students draw 6 or more columns on their paper and write a category at the top of each column. You can choose categories that fit what you have been teaching in class, or go with some basics. So popular categories include food, names, cities, famous people, occupation, verbs, countries. Then you choose a random letter and write it on the board. You give your students enough time to write down a word for each category. That starts with that letter. And you can repeat with new letters as many times as you like. The examples of exercises were taken from the textbook To the Top, split edition. This is a course designed for teenagers, taking them from beginner to intermediate level. It follows the modular approach, and there are 4 modules and 5 lessons, and a revision section after each module. You can also find culture time for Ukraine. There are 4 topics introducing students to Ukrainian and British culture, customs, and traditions. The colorful workbook goes with the audio, so students can listen to the text and dialects, songs, and lexical material taken from the students' book. You can also add top grammar. It follows the syllabus of the textbook To the Top. In order to find more about this course book, to click through the pages, just visit their website, nameandpublications.com. So this is it from me. Again, the last reminder about your certificates. You'll get them within 3 working days. Just check your email and junk box as well. Here you can see my contact information. You can see my mobile phone, email address, victoria.kolesnik@linguist.ua. Please subscribe and follow us on our Facebook page. We usually inform you about our events there, and we post articles for teachers and some extra teaching material that you are more than welcome to use. So, have you got any questions? Just want to check. I ask my students to make a sentence about yourself with new words. Okay, so it was a pleasure working with you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join this webinar. I see, thank you. So see you next month.